my distinct pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Lee Odden. Lee is the CEO and co-founder of Top Rank Online Marketing, an integrated marketing agency that helps organizations like McKesson, LinkedIn, Dell, and the PRSA build brand awareness, grow communities, and increase revenue online. Lee's also the author of Optimize, How to Attract and Engage More Customers by Integrating SEO, Social Media, and Content Marketing. An active industry advocate, Lee is an international speaker that has presented at over 100 events in New York, London, Moscow, Hong Kong, Sydney, and he just told me after West Virginia he's heading to Antwerp, Bucharest, and London. So we truly are glad to be joined by a global expert in the field of the intersection of digital marketing and public relations. Lee publishes and edits one of the most popular marketing blogs on the web at toprankblog.com and has written over 1 million words on the intersection of online marketing and public relations. Lee's been named by LinkedIn as one of the 25 most influential social media marketing experts to watch.
It's okay. I'm sorry.
And he's been cited in the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Forbes, and The Economist. It's my great pleasure to give a warm Integrate 2014 welcome to Lee Odden.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate it. Wow. I didn't write that. I swear to God, I did not write that. Wow. So it's so awesome to be here. I've never been to West Virginia. I haven't been to Morgantown either, of course. It's that first session from Pam was awesome. I've known Pam for a long time. I didn't know she had left Intel though, so that was pretty big news. And I will definitely be one of the first people to get her book because I've learned a lot from her over the years. And hopefully I'll have some interesting things to share with you too. So Pam talked about, she was with Intel, very large company, big budgets, but she wanted to flavor her presentation for an audience. A lot of you are small businesses or in that particular category. And interestingly, I'm in a situation where I'm a small business. I have 25 to 30 people, if you count contractors. So I'm a small business with no budget, no marketing budget whatsoever. We have no advertising with our company. We have no salespeople at our company. So a lot of what I'm going to share with you today is based on things I've learned as the sole person responsible for customer acquisition within our business. And the other part of that irony is that, of course, we work with a lot of large companies who appreciate the frugality of what we've learned working with no budget so that we can work with their whatever size budget to achieve success. And a lot of that comes from a very customer-centric and integrated approach. So after Pam had mentioned she had uploaded her slides, I'm like, gosh, that's a really good idea. So I quick uploaded my slides to this URL too. Thank you, Pam, for helping me optimize my presentation. So you can get that there. That's a private URL or secret URL or whatever. It doesn't mean you can't share it. It's just that's how I uploaded it because I had 2 seconds to do it. So you can get a copy of this full deck up at SlideShare. So there you go. Marketing PRWVU. Great. So as was mentioned, all kinds of stuff about me. Some of the things up there make me happy. My princess, surfing with my boys, and my little alarm clock there. And of course, my 2 biggest vices. I have friends. Jason Falls is bourbon is his vice, and Jay Baird, tequila is his vice. And I know Brogan, he likes scotch because I sent him scotch. But me, it's bacon and coffee. So if you really want to get to me through bacon and coffee. So that's a little bit about me. So this journey of integration for me began in 2001 when I was part of a 4-person agency. Actually, I wasn't even part of the agency. I was a contractor optimizing their website for search. And they were giving a pitch to the US division of British Telecom, a $1 billion company. There were 3 employees at this company, and the incumbent PR agency was Weber Shandwick. And I thought it would be a good idea to mention creating content for journalists to find through search. And what happened was the agency, which became Michigan Odden, displaced Weber Shandwick as an agency, which is insane, right? Because it's just 3 people for this $1 billion company, because no other agency that had pitched had talked about treating journalists like a target audience. right? They talk about target audiences in terms of customers. Well, what does a customer need to know to buy? Give them that information. But how can we actually create marketing or content-oriented campaigns that are discoverable through search? Because journalists were using search to find subject matter experts, and that was a big revelation. And of course, it was a big break for the agency. And ultimately, the product that I was working with actually became the company itself, called Top Rank Online Marketing. And that initiated a whole string, a whole sequence of things that happened in terms of how we approached our business. So we were disrupting, obviously, the traditional public relations model and treating PR like marketing, right? Instead of pushing through smile and dial media relations and that sort of thing, we were actually optimizing for pull, right? Because we know there was demand. We knew there was demand, and that disruption allowed us to innovate and differentiate ourselves from other companies. So there's disruption all over the place. I mean, especially right now. Consumer demand is obviously making it grow, but technology is enabling it to grow. And wherever you look, it's pretty easy to see. And especially in the PR world, you're looking at major news organizations like the New York Times and others being displaced by the Huffington Post and publications like BuzzFeed. And there's also a lot of information out there, and I like to say we live in an age of information overload and ubiquitous connectivity. This is a quote I've always thought was interesting from IBM. 90% of the data in the world has been created in the last 2 years. And Eric Schmidt's quoted as saying that every 2 days there's more information created than since the dawn of time to 2003. And that's a lot of zeros and ones, but there's a lot of content there too. And there's this big push and rush to content. Companies are investing in content and social. There's a big, it's kind of like a land rush, so to speak. But consumers are creating more content than ever before. Just looking at WordPress.com and Tumblr, there's over 250 million blogs. That doesn't even count corporate blogs or blogs self-hosted through WordPress.org. On the other side, brands, of course, are publishing more than ever. And there's this really neat study that's done by the University of Massachusetts in Dartmouth. Every year, they look at the Fortune 500 and Inc. 500 companies and what they're doing with social media. And last year to this was the biggest jump in Fortune 500 companies blogging. So there's all this content. And my friend Mark Schaefer's kind of coined this phrase that there's this idea of content shock, where the economics of creating content just don't make sense after a certain point. You know, there's all this information, there's all this uncertainty, and there's this notion that we're going to get to a point in time where people can't possibly consume all the content our brand is creating. And we may adopt a brand as publisher approach to digital marketing, and yes, PR is perfectly positioned to create stories and create content that's meaningful to target audiences, but at what point doesn't it make sense anymore? Now the funny thing about that is that we've been dealing with a social media shock. I mean, no one's called it that for a long time. Now, how many people here have, don't have enough updates on your Facebook page, right, from your friends, or tweets, or Snapchat messages, or whatever, right? And so there's a way to stand out, and it's about a customer-focused approach, right? There's so much brand investment in scale, in the drive to profitability, that there's an absence of focus on meaning, right? On human, on experience. And Pam talked about that as well. So for this particular presentation, I wanted to do something different, and I reached out to some folks in my network that are working in digital marketing leadership positions, digital marketing and public relations leadership positions, and these are the folks that responded. In fact, I got such a robust response from folks when I asked them this one question that I'm actually going to turn this into an ebook. So the question, what is the most significant disruptive force in the digital media world that you think is affecting marketing and communications? And like I said, we've got all kinds of responses, and the low-hanging fruit is, of course, publishers are being disrupted by smaller players, innovative players like BuzzFeed. You also have brands as publishers investing in content, and we also have changing consumer behaviors in terms of how they find, consume, and act on information. But I thought this was interesting from Matt Gentile from Century 21, the explosion of mobility and connectivity, right? Information availability is the most disruptive force in marketing communications today, right? It's not just about first screen, second screen, but also third screen, right? And being able to anticipate demand, anticipate consumer behavior and context as you create meaningful marketing campaigns is pretty important. And mobile and access to information and how people discover, consume, and act on information is paramount to being effective. Rob Bergfeld from Innova Health System shared something I think we can all relate to. The dirty little secret of the web is, of course, that nobody reads anymore. You're lucky if they skim, right? And that's why sometimes it seems like pictures have become everything and sometimes the only thing that people will pay attention to. And it's a sad thing to think that, really high quality journalism is being displaced by listicles and cat pictures. Ah! But it's true. Last year, BuzzFeed surpassed the New York Times in terms of readers. So, what does that mean to us as marketers? What does that mean to us as communications professionals? Do we emulate BuzzFeed, or do we do something different? I also talked with one of Pam's peers at Intel, or past peers, Jen Lashua, and I thought her insight was pretty interesting too. And this is something I'd highly recommend narrowing down into, because it's going to be a little bit of a minefield as it matures. This notion of using data to inform editorial. Well, I've been doing that forever. I mean, back in the days of being an SEO, we used keyword demand in Google AdWords to inspire content creation, because we know people who bought our stuff, people who bought our client stuff were searching for these types of words. So to be the best answer for those words, we'd create content for those things. That makes sense. But guess what? If that's all you do, that's filter bubble. Has anyone heard of filter bubble, right? And that's basically where there's no innovation, there's no new ideas. You're just constantly optimizing what already exists. And at what point does that become benign? So, but the starting point now is it is an opportunity, and there's a lot more granular data available so that you can more effectively personalize your editorial and your content for readers. There's tools out there, there's platforms. People in the digital marketing space have been doing this stuff forever. A/B testing, multivariate testing with landing pages and that sort of thing. And now publishers are using those same tools to optimize the front page, the categories, the newsfeed. So I thought this is an interesting story in the Columbia Journalism Review about how algorithms decide what news that you see. And this is increasingly becoming the norm with major publications, because obviously they've got to be able to scale the meaningfulness of what it is that they're presenting so that they can increase ad revenue. And there are tools like Visual Revenue from Outbrain that dynamically recommends content to you. It makes social media optimization recommendations. It gives you robust reporting and basically helps you make the most out of the traffic you're already getting. But this is designed specifically for a publisher. So we've been using Google Analytics and other web analytics tools to optimize our company websites. As brands move more towards a publisher model and they start investing in content creation that answers customer questions, that creates value for customers before asking for the sale, we're starting to run into this situation as well, where how can we make the most? Because if you keep investing in content creation and you aren't able to connect the dots to some kind of revenue increase, the warm and fuzzy of brand positive affinity isn't going to be enough to keep your job or keep the campaigns that you have going. So some of the other major disruptions, obviously I mentioned media companies. Over 10,000 journalists well, way more than that. In 10 years, number of journalists have gone down to 27,000 from 54,000. That's a lot of journalists out on the street working for companies like mine that are hiring journalists, right? People who can find a story in a boring product, in a boring industry, right? And a lot of other companies are hiring journalists too. But it's a situation where newsrooms and media publications are operating on very slim resources. That's a huge opportunity for a marketer. Make their job easy, right? Contributed articles, collect resources that are useful to them, and don't just pitch them, here's a story idea, do you want to talk to my executive? Delete. What you do is you actually compile resources. You put together a landing page of some sort that's got links and digital media, videos, images, links to outside resources, and be the best answer for the thing, and that's what you pitch to that journalist. Make their job easier. That's one of the outcomes of the fact that newsrooms are getting thinner on resources. And I'm sure lots of you have seen this, or maybe you've seen this. It's a digital innovation report from the New York Times. You spend 6 months reviewing that basically this is why the New York Times is losing to Vox and BuzzFeed and Huffington Post and all these other disruptive news media organizations. And the thing is this isn't just about the New York Times, it's about any major news publication. Guess what? That spells an opportunity. It's an opportunity for marketers to find underserved areas, right? Where major news organizations simply can't keep up, right? And a great example, I think, is Mike Stelzner, Social Media Examiner. He was running a white paper writing business, and he was doing guest posts on Copyblogger. And he had the bright idea, being inspired by what other people were doing, to create another blog, yet another blog out of hundreds of millions. But what he did differently is the aesthetic. He had a brand and a theme behind it. The design behind this blog was distinctly different than anything else out there at the time. And so through a combination of great packaging and high quality content and influencers, it's now in one of the top 900 sites, according to Alexa, in the world, or excuse me, in the United States. They're an industry leader in the social media space, but they're earning millions of revenue just off of ads on the site. But they've also launched a real-world conference. The first one was last year, and there were about 2,000 people that showed up paying $1,500 to $2,000 a head. That's pretty amazing for someone who was writing white papers and in just a couple of years has created this massive business all by finding an underserved niche. Now think about, in your industry, whether you're working for a large company or small company, what's not being served? You know, is there a situation where there are disparate resources and information that you could curate together? You could use a product like Curata to dynamically pull together information specific to what your target audience cares about, and a lot of that will be automatic. Or you could do it manually by creating a blog or a news site, a collection of resources. There's lots and lots of opportunity to serve unmet needs in the publishing industry. Something I've said for years, I think other people have said things like this too, but if you want to ensure your brand is in the media, become the media. And there's more tools than ever to accomplish that today. And in my case, as a small business owner, I started blogging 10 years ago as an experiment. People started paying attention and started thinking, gosh, you know what? I get questions all the time. I'm going to start answering those questions in these blog posts. And you know, for 13, 14 years, as I mentioned before, I've never had to hire a salesperson, and I've never done any advertising. Why? Because of content published on this blog. We have a community of over 300,000 people. What's my marketing budget? 0. How many marketers do I have? Well, 1. That's me. So believe me, this is one of those situations where if I could do that, anybody that's inspired and highly motivated and that has some hustle can do that same type of thing. Imagine what you could accomplish with that vision if you were working with a company that actually had some budget. Brand publishers. Obviously, you know, 90% plus of folks in the B2B and B2C space are investing or participating in content marketing. And there's a lot of dilution in what content marketing means. If you go to the demand gen people and folks over at Content Marketing Institute, content marketing is about creating content for a specific audience meant to inspire a particular outcome, right? I'm creating this content for this customer segment to inspire a conversion or some other measurable business outcome. If you go over the SEO world, what does content marketing mean? It's a link building tactic. And they're coming around. But you really got to be careful about who you're listening to when you think about what content means. It's not about quantity, right? And it's not just about quality. In terms of what Stephanie here says from Dell, obviously this is something I think we've all come to realize as we invest or we buy into the notion of brand publishing, and that is we don't have to rely on other publications. I don't have to pitch. In my case, I don't have to pitch to the Minnesota Business, which has a readership of 15,000. I mean, I could, or I could just write a blog post and know that 50,000 people are going to read it within a couple of days. You know, so people are empowering themselves by taking charge of their media, by becoming the media. Some great examples: IBM Midsize Insider, specifically directed toward mid-sized companies with technology needs. Also, the American Express Open Forums, classic example. Ford Social started out as a reaction to the fact that Ford was not taking bailout money. And then they turned that site into this sort of news hub where they had pre-written articles, press ready, and then they added a community component. So now people are supplying their own stories. And when people write their own stories about Ford products, then they'll pick the best ones and they'll surface those to the cover. So it's not only journalists that are reading this site, but it's also the end audience. Intel IQ is a great example of curated content. So you've got thousands of Intel employees who are sharing content on the social web, and some of that content is pulled into this hub, and then they have journalists writing original content as well. And it's a very robust destination. Dell's Tech Page One, which is a company that we work with, they want to be the Forbes of the IT industry. And so they have their editor-in-chief, and they've got journalists, and they have contractors, and they have outside resources, and they have curation, all bringing in content relevant to their target audiences in this one hub. So why would I want to go to Tech Republic or someone like that and pay an insane amount of money for lead generation when I could create my own media property and those leads can come to me and I own the whole thing? So it's as a result of successful implementations by big companies and small, there's been a lot more credence to this notion of brand journalism and obviously ultimately content marketing. And I think content is the perfect connection between PR and digital marketing, right? Because folks in the PR world are in the business of creating stories, finding stories, and connecting those stories with a particular audience. And marketers have a great skill at creating that process that will amplify those stories and achieve a particular measurable and meaningful business outcome. What they're doing at Intel's pretty cool, because right now Intel's newsroom is basically press releases, you have images, you have videos, da-da-da-da, but they're moving towards more consumer-oriented stories, right? Of course they want to reach journalists, of course they want to reach big companies that would buy their product, but they're focusing more on end consumer stories and having a more real-time journalistic feel. And then clearly media consumption is a big disruptor. Go mobile or go home. Really, I mean, if in one of the quotes I think is on this, it's coming up here in a second, that Jen made, is that if we're digital or we're mobile first now, if it's not going to work on mobile, we don't even publish it. It's the first item on the checklist to make sure that it is mobile friendly. So Matt's got another quote here about mobile. Consumers are interacting on screens of all types and sizes, right? How many people have a smartphone? Everybody. How many people have at least one tablet? Anybody? How many people have 2 tablets? Yeah, 3 tablets. I'm raising my hand because I have 3 tablets. That's insane. What do I need 3 tablets for? Because somebody gave me one, but otherwise it's kind of crazy. The devices and access that we have to information. So it's a huge opportunity, but you have to be able to respond. And that's the same caveat that people mentioned about social media. Well, our brand's going to create a Twitter account and Facebook and Google Plus and LinkedIn and all that stuff, but well, what if we can't handle all the requests? That's a positive problem. That's a positive problem. If you're going to make sure your stuff is mobile friendly, then you do need to make sure that you can act on the interactions that will come from that. That's the whole idea. I found this, I thought that was cool. WVU research out on the web. So responsive design is the low-hanging fruit of what to do about that. All right? At least making sure that your publishing platforms and your content management systems are responsive. You may decide to have a mobile-specific app, fine, but at a minimum, make sure that your primary publishing mechanisms, your platforms, are responsive. And if anyone's here, you know, when it comes to WordPress, there's so many responsive WordPress themes available. It's too easy, really, to create a good experience for your buyers. So these trends are all great, but what about integrating marketing and PR? What about some tactics? Okay, so let's get to some tactics. So there's a lot of convergence that's happening with PR and marketing. A lot of folks think of PR simply as, you know, we're going to create this key messaging that articulates how we want people to think about us. And then we get the client to write some content, and then we start pitching that content to journalists, hoping that they will write about us. Whereas in a converged situation, of course, we're talking about PR people working with marketing folks at the start of campaigns and architecting not just key messaging, but amplification of that messaging as well, right? And the biggest thing that PR benefits from with integration with marketing courses, how we are able to measure value. It's not just advertising equivalency, right? It's actual ROI. So the promise of digital marketing for a PR-centric person or a communications-centric person, number one, is audience targeting. We have the data that we can use to specifically target a customer segment that we're after. Who's our best customer, right? Which customer, what archetype of characteristics, what characteristics that we've blended into an archetype or persona represents the customers we're really after. And we can target them very, very specifically with digital marketing. The notion of cross-channel integration so that we can create a true, not just omni-channel type of experience, but a multi-channel experience that's congruent. So ultimately, you become the best answer wherever buyers are looking. Whether they see an ad, whether they read an email, whether they search for something, whether they go on the social web, wherever they go, they keep seeing you as being the best answer for the thing that you want to be known for. That's achieved by integrating marketing, publicity together. It's adaptable, optimizable, and highly measurable. So as I mentioned, the convergence of marketing and PR, I think, is really fueled by content creation. And what's awesome about being really good at content creation, of course, is that it inspires even more media coverage. In our case, we've never had a public relations firm. So how is it that we got mentioned in so many prominent publications? By becoming the best answer for journalists that we're looking, right? So we're optimizing for journalists, optimizing for buyers, optimizing for candidates that want to work with us, optimizing content for customers that want to find answers to customer service problems. This all comes from empathy. It all comes from empathy with who your target audiences are. Who are your constituents? Who is it that you would like to influence? And whether you're in marketing or PR, we're all in the content business, right? I mean, there are some differences, but I think we can find a lot of common ground. We are trying to create compelling messaging that affects a particular outcome. And there's a lot of ways to execute that, and they may be different, but it's integration, which is where the magic is. In working with lots and lots of different companies, small, medium, and large, in their maturity of creating content from one end to the other end of the spectrum, I found it to be really, really useful for people to understand where they might be on a continuum and then where they could be in the future. So in this model, stasis is basically we're only creating content when we have to. We launch a product, we have to put up a new page about that product, or maybe we do a blog post once a quarter. I mean, it's reluctant. But then we feel the pain of the competition kicking our ass in our market, and we start to think, wow, we really have to start creating some content. And this production phase is very search engine optimization centric. The idea here is that the more hooks in the water we have, the more potential entry points through search, the more potential destinations for links and social shares, right? So this is better than stasis because now at least we're creating more content. Keyword glossary, right? We did some keyword research to find out what people are searching on, and for the topics or the words that we don't have on our website, we're going to create some content because you can't rank for something unless you have content about that thing, and then you have to optimize for it. And then there's this notion of utility, which is a bit of a play on Jay Baer's book, Utility, Y-O-U, and that's the notion of, okay, yeah, we're creating a lot of content, but we're getting like bounce rates through the roof, right? 90% of the people come to our stuff, they find it, but then they don't do anything. It's not a good experience. So utility is about customer segmentation, right? Doing customer surveys, looking at data, creating a profile for the common characteristics, the demographic, behavioral, psychographic information about customers and their buyer's journey, and then basically think about what questions do people have as they go from awareness to interest to purchase for your product or service. What questions do they have? And creating content based on answering those questions. Useful information for people as they start to become aware, compare you to others, and ultimately decide to buy whatever it is that you do. That's utility, useful content and information. Storytelling. Now we're concerned not just on quantity of quality, but we also want them to feel something about our brand, right? We don't want it to be mechanical. We want the experience to be meaningful as they find our content out on the search and social web. So storytelling is making a connection between the things that will motivate emotionally our target audience to create some affinity with what our brand stands for, right? You have a unique selling proposition for your company, I hope. What is it that you stand for? How is it that you want your buyer to feel? And that's this notion. And there's no better way to do that or accomplish that than through storytelling. And then there's this notion of monetization. Monetization is where your content is so effective that not only is it able to generate revenue through customer acquisition, people find it, they interact with it, you nurture them with marketing automation or email, or they keep coming back and now they're ready to buy, and bam, transaction, revenue, yay. But you're also able to monetize that content through advertising, through sponsorship, through syndication, that sort of thing. There's a great example in Minnesota. General Mills has a website called tablespoon.com. It's a collection of recipes, basically, but the photography is insanely good, right? And so not only are they able to, and it's very funny, it's very clever. For a while, they had this guy, shirtless dude named Alejandro, cooking stuff, and they had videos, and apparently that's what their target audience really wanted. I don't know how they monetized Alejandro, though. But the thing about Tablespoon is that it creates its utility. It creates useful information. It's got recipes with the company's products and coupons to drive store traffic. So they're monetizing that way, but they literally license the photos off to other food websites and recipe websites. So they monetize that way. They run ads on the site, so they're making money that way. You've heard of Will It Blend? Remember way back when, putting iPhones in the blender? Those guys, they had a YouTube channel, and they started selling CDs. I mean, like, you can watch all the videos on YouTube, but they started selling CDs, and they started selling advertising so to pay for their marketing. We do, at our company, we do conference ebooks sometimes. So with content marketing world, social media marketing world, blog world, I guess you have to have the word world in the conference for us to work with you. We interview speakers and have them give us tips on what they will be presenting on. And then we promote that, and the speakers are incentivized to promote this because it's got them in it. And we find people to underwrite those things. So it's got our information all in it. It's an example of content that we can create for a company, but someone else is paying for our marketing as another example. So monetization isn't something everybody needs to get to, but it sure as heck is possible. Make sense? Yeah? Okay, cool. And of course, we're all in the social media business too, right? Whether you're a marketer using social listening to actually look for sales opportunities, right? Like IBM's listener program generated millions in new revenue by simply doing keyword researches on Twitter and forums, looking for the things people often ask about near the end of the sales cycle, and then reaching out to them, being useful. Or on the PR side, of course, we use social for reason, we want to connect with influencers, we want to create messaging that supports content that we're trying to publish through a media outlet or whatever. So here's a model. Working in this situation with so much data, so much information, so many things to think about, a big part of my job is to try and simplify that stuff. And the model that we promote starts with customer empathy, of course, and the relationship between buyers and information, right? There's so many ways to access information. There's so many information sources. So we think about first in terms of how is it that my target audience, once I have them defined, how is it that they discover new information? What are they searching on? What are they talking about on the social web? What do they subscribe to? What events do they go to? What publications do they read? And that sort of thing. And we organize that in a discovery bucket. And then we look at consumption. What are their preferences for media and content consumption? Right? So if I understand that someone, my target audience likes video, then I'm going to put out video. If they like images, I'm going to do images. They like long-form content, short-form content, how-tos, and so forth. Also, devices used to consume that content. If you've got double digits referral traffic to your site using mobile devices and you're not responsive or mobile-friendly, you're creating a really crappy experience for your customers. So consumption preferences are key for optimizing the experience. And then action. What messages, what offers will inspire them to take the next step? It's not all about transaction and purchase. It could be as simple as a micro conversion like sign up for a demo, subscribe to our newsletter, maybe connect with us on a social network, download a trial, that sort of thing. But whatever it is, we're always giving them something to do next, right? Don't ever make the mistake of deploying a content program where you are not giving them something to do next. I know people say you shouldn't sell on the social web. You shouldn't be salesy. Of course you shouldn't. But you should also be helpful, empathizing with the customer that you are actually successful in persuading them that you are the best answer, the best resource for a thing. Then they will want to know what to do next. And we do that across the sales cycle. And we're deploying efforts at creating content specific to different stages of that customer journey and applying a layer of publicity, right? Search optimization for visibility and social promotion and amplification. And it doesn't all have to be organic because we know organic is getting tougher and tougher on social networks. You're going to have to pay. Especially with Facebook, it's just the way it is. You're going to have to pay to get substantial reach. But if you anticipate what that buyer journey is, and you understand for your best customers, the ones you're after, their preferences for information discovery, consumption, and action, then you can have a more effective marketing program. So the way we act on this, of course, the way we organize what we're doing outside of that empathy with the customer is, of course, the marketing activities, the integrated marketing and PR activities, according to Attract. So here we're talking about demand generation stuff, right? This is where a lot of the content creation is happening. The publicity, the pitching of media and bloggers is happening. We're trying to make sure people are aware of us early stage, that we exist. And then, of course, engagement. Everything you do needs to be accountable to these three things when it comes to content. Whether that's content being published to pitched to a journalist or content being published on your blog or company website. So from an engagement standpoint, we're focused now on growing our list, whether it's growing the social network size and quality or literally building an email list, building a list of influencers to work with, building a list of journalists that will trust you because you're a subject matter expert. We're growing that community. And then conversion, basically anything to do with capturing information on a form, right? What can we do to increase and optimize conversions? That's how we organize everything that it is that we do with no marketing budget. Everything has to be accountable to how will this attract an audience that we're after? And how is it going to engage them in a meaningful way? And then what's the next step? How will we get them to convert to the next step or as a new customer? And one of the ways to implement this sort of thing, of course, is by creating signals of credibility. Again, wherever it is that they're looking, you're the best answer. So that's where a lot of the outcomes of integrated efforts will come into play. And you create a process of anticipating those needs for your target audience, creating content that empathizes with them, answers their question. You optimize for what they're looking for. You optimize for what they're interested in consuming and with the devices and formats that they prefer, and with the offers that will motivate them to take action. You make that a process across the sales cycle, right? That's how to be efficient with an integrated approach, right? There we go. And you could do this with not just buyers, but with journalists as well. You map out the sales cycle, right? Is it a sales cycle? Yeah, I suppose you're persuading them that you are a subject matter expert that they should do an interview with, that you should cite in that article that they're writing. Think about what keywords would be relevant for them, early, middle, late stage in that process. Maybe they're responsible for covering a topic and they don't even know about the topic. What are the broad concepts, right? Well, if they know about you and 5 other people, what will differentiate you? And what signals of credibility can you create in your content, in your newsroom, to be available to journalists or bloggers that bother doing research? You can use the same principles that you would do for a content marketing program with that audience as well. And this is kind of an example of pulling these things together. So obviously, as Pam said, business goals are absolutely essential. In this hypothetical example, because that's the easiest way for me to illustrate this, we want to sell more premium widgets, and we know we need to connect with higher end customers in order to do that. So we collect information on our existing customers that are higher end, we survey them, we find out what is it about our product or service that motivates you to buy. And we find out what it is that they care about. Where are they discovering, consuming, and acting, discovering information, what messages will motivate them to take action. And so we take some of those insights from doing customer surveys, and we also go to frontline employees, customer service and sales, and say, what are the most common questions that you get? And we take the answers that they give us, and we go to PR, and we say, we need to have stories run in publications where our higher end customers are reading about these topics, about these things that our higher end customers most often ask about. Here's what normally happens. Brand decides we are going to sell based on these features and benefits. We need to be the best answer for those things. And they go to the media, they pitch, they get stories run, da 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 da. What I'm talking about is getting information from actual customers, getting information about people who actually interact with customers, and using those as inspiration for the stories that you get run in the media and for the content that you create on your own website. So we achieve those media placements, we do some blogger outreach, we work with influencers, we're publishing content in the formats and channels that are relevant to that particular higher end customer segment. And then we measure success by key performance indicators, the things that show us we're on track to the outcome of sales, increased sales. So increased exposure. We're looking at whether people are interacting with our social content, whether they're mashing it up, whether they're participating in the contest of taking a photo of themselves with their new purchase. All those sorts of things lead up to the final business outcome, where we're able to look at not just revenue, but we're also able to look at a comparison between how long does it take for people, how long has it been taking for people to make the purchase? What's the length of the sales cycle? Are we shortening it? Are we increasing the order volume? Are we increasing order frequency? Are we increasing referrals and word of mouth or not? And then, of course, if you get endorsements, you can use that in subsequent marketing campaigns. And we use any data that we collect through this integrated approach to optimize our campaign. So this isn't a campaign, this is ongoing, right? That's the whole idea of optimization. It's a little tough to optimize a campaign if it dies and goes dark after 2 weeks. So one example, this what I was talking about is a conference ebook, and I like to call it participation marketing because we didn't create all this. 90% of the content comes from people who are influential for the thing that we and our partner want to be known for. So here's the hypothesis. What if you can find a way to create content that solves problems for multiple target audiences, multiple constituents? The situation here was conferences want people to register. People who speak at conferences, especially when there's breakout sessions, they want people to know about their session and come and sit in those seats instead of somebody else's. And of course, there are people that are marketers that want really good advice from brands who are actually doing those things. And that's where the conference ebook idea came about. So as I mentioned, go to, so of course we're creating this, right? So anybody could do this, right? Any event. It could be a webinar with multiple speakers. It could be a thing like this. Anybody could do this sort of thing because people who usually speak at events want exposure. That's part of the reason why they're doing that. If you can give them more of what they want, then they might participate, and the end product is something they want to be a part of. And if that end product is something that they feel connected to, it will inspire them to promote it. So when we first did one of these for Content Marketing World, we published it the day before the conference opened, and it had over 45,000 views on SlideShare alone within the first 4 days. And speakers were actually mentioning it in their presentation. And we were able to connect with people from major brands as a result of creating a positive experience, asking them a question. The first one was actually secret agent themed. And it was a story like this. We went to these influencers with 10 questions and said, would you answer these 10 questions? We're going to make an ebook. And the response rate was 0. These people are too busy. They're not going to answer 10 questions. Are you crazy? So I thought, okay, what are we going to do? One of the questions about share a secret. So I thought, okay, let's get into character. Let's ask the question in character and say, you just returned from a mission. You're a secret agent. You just returned from a mission. You met with your handler who's given you this super, super secret thing about content marketing. Please share your content marketing secret. The Content Marketing World, which is the name of the conference, depends on it. And people from Cisco and Intel and lots of other companies answered. Many of them answered in character. This is Agent 49. I'm Jane Doe from Cisco, and it was amazing. And so people bought into it. So what's the lesson there? One, get creative. Be opportunistic. Be opportunistic, because not, as Pam said, not everything works out. So you've got to adjust and adapt. But the other thing is the creative application here was everything, right? Having a sense of humor was everything. So anyway, it creates relationships with the influencers that you're working with, and it can create a scenario where you can do it over and over again. You know, a lot of folks are treating content projects like this as a campaign, and I think that's crazy. That's crazy. Do it over and over again. Not every quarter, but do it in a cyclical nature. And what you do is create something that's one of the most powerful states that you can create amongst a target audience, and that is anticipation. People can't wait to see when you're going to publish that thing next. Now it's a situation where when we do this for an event, people are complaining and saying, how come I didn't get included on the ebook? and people are underwriting it. So it's a pretty interesting thing. And again, anybody could do this. We've been doing these in partnership with conferences, but you don't necessarily have to. You find out who the speaker list is, you reach out to them, let them paint the vision of what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and make it super easy for them to participate, and make it super easy for them to amplify, and make sure the thing you make is really cool, right? And promote the heck out of it. And when it's successful, it leads to more success. So what does this have to do with SEO? Well, In this case, we're promoting the notion of content marketing, and of course, all these references to derivatives of the key target phrase, content marketing, were popping up all over the web in relation to this particular ebook, in relation to the conference that we were promoting, Content Marketing World, right? So Google is looking not for lots of exact match instances of a phrase. They're looking for a natural pattern, right? They're looking for derivatives and all the different crazy ways people use to describe a thing. I don't know if you know this, 16% of the daily queries on google.com have never been seen before. And Google handles 10 to 12 billion queries every month. That's wow, really? Yes, yes. So long tail is very, very important with SEO. So a project like this is very, very helpful from an SEO perspective. And also from a social perspective, because then we've got all these influencers. Not William Shatner, he did not decide to participate in this ebook. But lots of other folks, thought leaders, brands, are all talking about this on different social channels. And they're making reference to Content Marketing World, and they're linking back to the ebook. They're linking back to the conference website. So we're creating signals that are relevant for search. Actually, we're not creating them. The participants are creating them. And they're also creating positive signals on the social web as well. You can do this. You can do this. Another dimension here, this kind of project reveals an insane number of repurposing opportunities. So the ebook is 30, 40 people. We upload each person's individual image to Pinterest. We upload their profiles to Flickr. We take answers that are similar, like all the people who said something about Facebook, and we ran a blog post with just the Facebook tips. And then we took all the people who said something about LinkedIn and ran that as a separate blog post, and so on and so forth. Another thing you can do here is, oh, I do have one. So you can take information from something like a long-form piece of content, like an ebook, deconstruct it into a blog post, and then micro-content for sharing on the social web. And this is what a lot of folks are doing. You use it in a newsletter, use it on your website. There's lots of different ways to use it. But you can also go in the opposite direction. If you use your mind and you plan ahead, and you're, okay, we're going to create this long-form content. Let's deconstruct it before we even make it, right? What are the individual component parts and messages? And we can start to drop hints at what we're making. We can take pieces of the information that's useful and start popping that out there on the social web as micro content. And then we can curate all those small pieces of information into a thing like an ebook, into a thing like a presentation, into a thing like a contributed article to an industry publication. Does that make sense? You can get useful coming and going, and you can iterate and improve and optimize. So some ways to measure this stuff. From Attract, again, Attract is about demand generation. We're trying to create awareness. We want people to know not just about us, but that we are the best answer for the thing that we stand for, that our product stands for. So we're going to look at things like search visibility, social visibility. We're going to look at page views. We're going to look at anything that is an indication that people have now become aware of us. Yeah? Engagement. Anything to do with content consumption, right? We're looking at time on site. If we're mapping the topics we're optimizing for to the pages on our site, so if I want to be known for red widget, I know in a spreadsheet somewhere that these are the pages optimized for red widget. Now I want to look at my web analytics to make sure that I'm actually getting traffic to the pages about red widget. Google has taken away keyword refers. You cannot tell anymore what keywords drove traffic to your website. You cannot. Google said no, right? And so how can you know what keywords that you're optimizing for are actually driving traffic to your website? What you do is you make your keyword list that you're after, and you map that to content on your website, and then when you have increased organic search traffic, and it'll say not provided, to those pages, you know, you can hypothesize on one dimension that you have increased search visibility for those particular phrases. You also look at things like ranking reports, right, that can tell you now your position on Google is number 2 versus number 10 or whatever, and you correlate those two things along with Google Webmaster Tools that also reports keyword information to help you understand whether your search optimization efforts are effective or not. And then convert, of course, anything to do with forms being captured, right? So it's not just about the micro-conversions or the transactions, but it's also about saving money, shortening sales cycles, and the effects on other buyer behavior or transaction behavior, like the amount that they're ordering or the profitability of a particular customer and that sort of thing. All organized according to this very simple model: attract, engage, and convert. So some takeaways. And I know I'm cramming a lot on a Saturday morning. I don't even know what day it is, right? I'm traveling and da-da-da-da. So I apologize for that. So you want to be in the media, become the media. I mean, that's, and it's not, you don't have to go launch a huge initiative to accomplish this. Take a look at underserved areas in your market. Wouldn't it be great if there was a resource for this? Then go make it. And connect with people who are already really well known for that thing. And co-create content with them on this new web property that you've created. Influencers inside your company, influencers in the industry at large. You can create stuff together and it's awesome, then you're baking amplification and social sharing into the content creation itself. And then keep content accountable, right? Our model may or may not work for you. It's very simple: attract, engage, convert. Make sure everything you make, every pitch, every type of content that you might go to the world with is accountable to its ability to attract, the meaningfulness of its ability to engage, and the offer, whatever it might be, to inspire action or conversion. So there you go. I wrote a book about a lot of this stuff, but you'll find thousands of articles on the topic at toprankblog or marketingblog.com as well. So do we have time for any questions? Yeah?
Can you show the URL one more time where your slide deck is?
It is at TPRK. I don't know how to do this without. It's at TPRK. Okay, take a picture of it?
Yeah.
Somebody tweet this, okay? Oh, yeah. Go to the Twitter. There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
You mentioned a couple tools that you use during, like Curata. What are some of the great tools for no budget type marketing PR efforts?
What depends on what kind of thing would you, what are some of the great tools for marketing PR efforts?
In content creation or even for
Here's an idea.
creation, et cetera.
So for no budget, what are some cool tools you might use that don't cost anything? Well, definitely WordPress as a publishing platform. And a couple of tools I've been playing with lately have been really, really kind of neat. One of them is BuzzSumo, BuzzSumo.com. It's kind of a freemium model, but there's lots that they're giving away for free. What is it? You can go in and type in a competitor's a blog, and it'll give you all the blog posts that they've done and how popular they are on the social web, giving you all the share counts and the list of all the people who shared those posts. You can also type in keywords and find out which are the most socially popular websites for those keywords. And then you can use that as inspiration for your editorial, because when you want to write about something that people are already interested in. The other thing you can do is you can find influencers. It also has an influencer filter, so you can find who's most influential for a particular topic. I love it for competitive research and finding out who is contributing blog posts to industry publications that I might be able to hire to work at my company. Or find out what competitors, like if there's a really popular site, what is it they're writing and which types of posts are the most socially shared. And I will use that information to optimize my own efforts. That's a quick tool. Yep. Any other questions? Yep.
Thanks for putting that up, because I don't remember anything you said after bacon.
Bacon is the answer to lots of things, isn't it? Speaking of bacon, I got attacked by bacon last night. I was eating a Cobb salad, and a piece of bacon flew off a piece of lettuce and went right into my eye. Why am I sharing that public? I don't know, I guess. But yeah, bacon can be evil. Bacon can do bad things. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? All right, great. Well, thank you very much.